What's up? What's up? I'm Dr. Omatma, host of Egg Meet Sperm, where we're busting fertility myths, sharing tangible tips for your fertility journey, and bringing you the most knowledgeable guests to support your journey to parenthood. This podcast is for both women and men because getting fertile as fuck is for both partners, don't you think? Remember, just listening to this podcast won't get you pregnant, but following the tips we share just may. Let's get you fertile AF so that you can co-create the family you dream of. And if your partner's not listening to this, make sure to share this episode with your partner. Hello and welcome to Egg Meet Sperm. My guest today is a very special Kate Kripke, who is a licensed clinical social worker, perinatal mental health counselor, and she has worked with individuals and groups in periods of transition and change for more than 20 years. She spent the past decade and a half supporting women and families as a founding director and senior supervising psychotherapist of the Postpartum Wellness Center of Boulder, an organization she created in 2007. Kate has extensive experience and training in perinatal mood and anxiety disorders with a BA in Sociology from the University of Colorado at Boulder and a master's degree in clinical social work from Smith College. She has participated in numerous maternal mental health task forces, most recently sitting on the Pregnancy-Related Depression State Advisory Committee convened by the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment. In addition to her work at PWCB, Kate shares her expertise through one-on-one and group coaching, online workshops, a weekly podcast called Motherhood Uncut, and her upcoming book, Reinventing Supermom, Support and Strategies for New Mothers Who Feel Lost. I am so excited to be talking to you today, Kate, because I do believe that mental health, and specifically maternal mental health, is such an important field.
It is so important. I'm going to back up. This is really tricky, but my last name is Kripke, which is it is so not at all. It's like my maiden name was Shaw, which is so much easier. And this is the story of my life. People say it sounds like a little bird, Kate Kripke. So it's a little got a ring to it. Anyway, thank you. Yeah. The focus of all of my work is on maternal mental health and wellness. And as I say often, it's not always just for the mom that I'm doing the work. Really, the recipients of the work are those babies and children that get the benefit of a mom being healthy and well.
Yeah. So I know that we were chatting a little bit ahead of time, and you mentioned that maternal mental health really starts way before the baby comes. So let's talk a little bit about what you have seen in your work. And when we think about mental health, I feel like that word gets thrown around so much, but what does that actually mean? And how do I know if I'm mentally healthy?
I love that you started with this question. And it's so true. We throw this term around and we're like, what the heck are we talking about? So my definition of mental health in general, although because I work with mothers, all varieties of mothers, I use that term maternal mental health, which really we're talking about anywhere from sort of preconception through the rest of one's career as a mother, right? Which is forever. I really think of it as it doesn't mean that we're talking about someone being happy all the time. That is not what maternal mental health is. Maternal mental health is not that we're feeling good all the time and happy all the time. Really what it means is that we're willing to feel all the discomfort that comes with life, all the discomfort that comes with motherhood, but we have the capacity to manage our nervous systems so that we can come back to a place of stability versus being overcome by all of those challenges in life that kind of throw us off our feet, right? Mm-hmm. So for me, maternal mental health is sort of equals resiliency, really what we're talking, the capacity to be resilient to all of what life throws us.
Yes, absolutely. So in terms of resilience then, and I also love this word resilience because especially when we talk about stress in the context of stress, people are like, oh, lower your stress. And I'm looking at people like, that's not going to happen in my life. I don't know about what your life looks like, but lowering stress is not an option. So I do really come at it from how do we build our own capacities to better handle the things that are being thrown at us. Is that how you think about resilience as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, life is full of stress. It is stressful, right? I actually think it's an interesting point because we so often spend our time and energy trying to control those things outside of us that feel stressful so that we don't have to feel the impact of stress. And we don't have control over all that stuff outside of us, right? It's just like wave after wave after wave. And so to me, that definition of resilience is just that. It's how do we learn to come inward so that we have the internal capacity to be resilient to the things that life throws us, those curveballs that life throws us, because it will keep happening, right? Life will keep getting those waves. They'll look different. Each stressor might look different. So it's like, I agree that stress reduction doesn't make a lot of sense, but the stress management is a little better. That's even a little too like technical sounding to me. Yeah. Really, we're talking about going inside and understanding our bodies and our emotions and our thoughts and our nervous system so that we can build that strength and resiliency internally.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really great redefinition of what a lot of people want to talk about, but I feel like this like takes us down a different track if we think about it differently, right? So the starting point has to be about how do we increase our own internal capacities?
That's really the only place we have control, right? Yeah. That's what agency is, right? Choice and agency is all about us. And I think that idea, reduce stress. I mean, again, you're right. I think for any human, certainly a mother, how do you reduce the things that happen around you when they're just happening outside of your control? So we can get anxious at the idea of that. Yeah. If we come back to how do we learn how to actually moderate what's happening inside of us, that is where we have control, really. And once we do that, we just respond differently to the things outside of us.
Yeah. So I know that we have lots of different types of stress. And you already hinted at it a little bit with maternal stress or like mothering stress. But what are some of the common things that you have seen that create like this stressed response state in our bodies?
Yeah. So I think beginning way before a baby is on the outside, right? We look at biological or physical stress. That's like what is happening inside of our bodies that's causing some sort of distraction for us, right? So biological, physical stress. We have psychological stress, which has to do with our emotions and our thoughts and our beliefs, right? We have social stress, which is all about our relationships with ourselves and the people around us and our environments. And we actually have so it's really kind of from a clinical perspective, we look at biological, psychological, and social. More recently, I've been talking a lot about spiritual stress or lack of a sense of purpose in one's life or greater connection to something outside of ourselves. And so I think when I look at sort of the part about learning to manage those stressors, we really look at that from that biological, psychological, social, and spiritual perspective.
Yeah, I love that like whole person perspective.
Yeah.
So can we talk a little bit about the fertility journey? Because a lot of our listeners are very much in that space. Yes. Fertility feels like an especially stressful time. Yes, and I've heard so many women say, it's not that I'm stressed and that's why I can't get pregnant. It's really that this journey is so freaking stressful and it's contributing to me not getting pregnant, right? So it's really like, especially when it comes to fertility, oh, don't stress, just relax, you'll get pregnant. And it's so frustrating to hear that while you're on this journey and it's already like causing you so much stress. And then people or doctors even come in and say, oh, just relax. It's like, I want to punch you in your face.
If only I could. Okay? Right. Yeah. It's like I am often saying to folks, you feel stressed because it is stressful. That's an appropriate response to external stress. Or you feel disappointed because it is disappointing. You feel frustrated because it's frustrating, right? And so I think we start there and we really have to normalize and allow for there's very human normal responses to what is happening outside of us. So those moms are right. Those folks going through fertility journeys are right. It's not me that's the problem, so to speak. It's this thing outside of me that's problematic. And yes, of course, there's nothing wrong. There's nothing broken in a mom who is feeling stressed out, right?
Yeah.
That said, we want to, once we've done that, once we've normalized and softened about that very normal and appropriate response of fertility journey, we want to say, okay, let's get really curious, right? Like, what does the physical stress that's happening look like for that mom? And how do we support those things, right? Is she having a hard time sleeping because she's so anxious about what's happening? How do we support good sleep, right? Is she feeling uncomfortable in her body because of all of the things that are happening with that fertility journey and hormones and all of those things that we go through, that moms go through in fertility? How do we support that, right? Psychological, what are the psychological stressors, right? What are the thoughts that that mom is having that are increasing her feelings of stress? Does she have catastrophic thinking, or is she sort of kind of going to that place of despair and fear, which is, again, so normal, but not going to help someone feel okay if her thoughts are always focused on that, right? How do we help mom's thoughts focus somewhere where she can feel better? How do we help her make sense of all those emotions and validate them for herself and get support? And then there's all these social stressors too, right? I mean, so much conflict in partnerships during fertility journey. How do we support that, right? Spiritual stress, there's this like really intense feeling of not being held by source or spirit or God or whatever the heck you want to call it, right? This loss of this lack of purpose. And
So I was just going to ask about that. Like, is it on some level, because I feel like motherhood is often such a calling. And then when it doesn't happen, or it feels like it's being taken away, it feels like, oh, the purpose of what I thought I was here for in so many ways can't be fulfilled. And that becomes like such an intense feeling.
Despairing, right? I mean, that feeling can be equated as despair and total loss and isolation and hopelessness, right? So again, I think if we're looking at how do we support those stressors so that the impact of that stress, which is so normal and valid, doesn't contribute, because we know when we're stressed, we tighten and we hold our breath and we don't do the things that we need to do to be healthy. And we want moms to soften and breathe and take care of themselves in the fertility journey. So we have to normalize, but then address those different areas so that those folks feel supported, so that they actually literally can, quote unquote, relax. I hate that word, but literally so that they can.
Yes. We're not saying just go relax.
No.
It's like we want to help people experience it in their bodies, in their minds, to be able to just be in that state.
That's right.
Without like actively telling someone to go and do something.
I often will say, you're not doing those sort of quote unquote self-care, whether it's biological, psychological, social, or spiritual. You're not doing those things so that you don't feel those uncomfortable feelings. You're not doing those things so that you don't feel stressed. You're doing those things while you feel stressed, so that you can offer your body and your brain something at the same time that will alleviate some of the internal tension that happens during times of stress.
Yeah. And like, I feel like there's this connection between our body and mind. And
yes, there is.
And is it true then to say, like, if our body is able to experience relaxation in the sense of the breathing is easier and the body, oh my God, holding on for dear life. If our body's able to experience that, then that transfers into the other levels and vice versa.
Yes. I think what's interesting is that our physiology, our bodies don't know the difference between real and perceived threat, right? So if our thoughts are focused on threatening thoughts, our body is going to tense up. Our body is going to get really tense and tight. And then our internal systems don't work as well as we want them to. So in the realm of mental health and wellness, I often start with the brain and our thoughts, right? And it's not as easy as saying, well, I'm walking around telling myself this fertility treatment isn't going to work this time, right? This IVF cycle isn't going to work, or I'm not going to get my period again, right? You can't go from that to it's going to work. And that's too hard for many people. But we want to question those thoughts. We want to soften the thoughts a little bit to say, is it possible that it might, right? So that we can begin to soften. And once our thoughts soften, our bodies will soften. And we can do it the other way too, right? I think we can learn to soften our physical response by how we're breathing, right? We can learn to soften our physical response by how much rest we're getting, by how we're eating, by how much water we're drinking. So it does go both ways. But I think especially during a fertility journey, our thoughts are really profound. And we don't always know, we don't realize we have as much control over thoughts as we really do.
Yeah, I love this perspective because I do find that the thoughts that we're having are not enough awareness that we have around them that we can go and be like, oh, actually, that's not true. I also think that what you said about hope and this feeling of it's not going to work, I'm not going to get my period again, whatever those thoughts are that are negative. I wonder if there is a little bit of protection energy of, oh, I don't want to get disappointed. And it's almost like a pushing against the feelings. And then that creates the domino effect into our physical bodies. But I'm curious how you hold this, like, I don't want to be disappointed. So I'm like actively thinking these things.
I love your question. Yeah. I mean, I think there are a few things, and we start with a really general concept in mental health, wherever you are in your life, which is that we actually have to learn that disappointment is not going to kill us. It often feels like it is. And I'm not at all suggesting that it's not really painful and really powerful, but just the way you started, I don't want to feel disappointed, right? Sort of sets us up for this cascade of tension. And disappointment is manageable if we know how to take care of ourselves around it. Now, what I mean by that is if we can go into this and say, okay, I can't actually control whether or not I'm going to feel disappointed because feelings come. We cannot control, we can't ward feelings off. That's not how humans work, right? So I am aware that disappointment is a part of this process of fertility and also a process of life. I mean, find me someone who doesn't feel disappointed over and over and over in life, right? So we know that this is part of it. We start there. And then we sort of remember that whether or not we are telling ourselves that this cycle or this month or this whatever it is, we're going to feel disappointed, whether we prep ourselves not to or not, is an important part of this, right? I don't care how much someone tells themselves that they can do something to not feel disappointed if they get their period again. You're still going to feel disappointed because that's a very appropriate feeling to feel. It makes so much sense, right? So I think we want to remember that it's not the disappointment that's the pain. It's the challenge of wanting to become pregnant and having a hard time with that. That's painful, right? And so we want to really make space for all that comes with that. Does that make sense to you? As I say
can
that?
totally feel some release in my body even while I think about what that shift would feel like.
From a psychological perspective, and it's interesting, some people gravitate towards the spiritual way of holding this idea, and some people gravitate towards the psychological and scientific way of holding this idea, right? But our thoughts matter. And someone who gravitates toward spiritual thought might think about prayer and manifestation and I don't know, whatever they could think about. Someone who works in psychology is going to consider confirmation bias, right? And the moment we say to ourselves, this isn't going to work, is the moment our body tenses. We just talked about that a moment ago, right? And when our body tenses, our body is less likely to function the way it knows how to, right? And so it's not that we have sort of made it not happen. But that thought has such an impact on our physiology that thinking to ourselves, I'm just going to plan for it not to work so I'm not disappointed, does us no favors anywhere.
It doesn't. It's not actually protecting us.
No, not at all. Not at all. And in fact, what is useful is to be open to the possibility that it might work. We don't know, but to be open to the possibility that it might work and to really get support, internal support in ourselves and external support for if it doesn't, who's there to help support us through that so that we don't have to go through that disappointment alone. And that's the social piece, right? That's why social support is so important.
Yeah. Wow. This is so powerful. Like I can feel what that would feel like. So I'm really excited for people to hear this conversation. I have another hard question for you.
Yeah, I love hard questions.
I find that there are some people who want to stay in hope, and that keeps them from actually doing the work to figure out what's going on hormonally, what's going on under the surface, right? They're like, no, I don't want to know what my labs look like because I am hopeful that this is going to work. And I like, it's the exact opposite of this like hopelessness place. And often the women that are holding that energy are quote unquote older. I'm putting it in quotes because there's a whole age thing.
Yeah, totally.
Totally. I'm curious about that place. And well, it's okay for me to have hope. And I'm going to like work on my mindset and work on the positive psychology piece. And how do we balance that with let's also know what's going on internally so that we're not setting you up for false hope in a way? If it's almost like I want to prolong when I'm going to be in a place of acceptance around what's going on in my body. And I'm curious if you have thoughts on that.
Such a powerful question. And I go back to that both and, right? Hope is really powerful. It's very important to remain hopeful in the things that we're doing that are really hard, right? But hope without knowledge and experience and exploration around the things that are uncomfortable is not actually useful at all. In the field of psychology, and I'm not at all inferring that everybody who is in this place that you're describing is exhibiting this, but we call it toxic positivity in some ways, right? If I just stay positive, I'll get what I want. And that actually misses the point of how dimensional we are as humans, right? We are biopsychosocial spiritual beings, right? So the hope, the brain part, the thinking is only part of it, right? And if we're skipping over all the other information that actually, we say this so many different ways, but information is power, right? The more we know, the more we can do, right? So if we skip over that and just try to control things with our thinking, without acknowledging all of the places where there might be room for, well, certainly discomfort, because if someone's doing those, going and getting all of those things checked out, they might find information that's uncomfortable to sit with. That's what that's about, right? I think the pure focus on positivity is I don't want to think about the hard things. But as we've been saying over and over in this talk today, we have to be willing to think about and feel the hard things to be able to access the exciting, beautiful, inspiring things.
I love it. It's such a balanced approach. I love this. Okay, so I know that fertility, specifically having to go through that struggle, sometimes lends to somewhat of a harder experience postpartum, when I think that there is this like belief system or something that we believe like, oh, this was so hard, I should just be super happy and super grateful and like all the positive emotions when the baby comes. But in reality, it may not look like that. Can you talk a little bit more about what's happening there?
Yeah, for sure. So going through a fertility journey does put a mom at higher risk for developing postpartum mood challenges, depression, anxiety, and the whole spectrum and the whole range of how severe or mild those can be. It does put someone at a higher risk because of several things. One, you're working your body hard during a fertility journey, right? And that's physical stress, right? And so we go into postpartum, if we've had a fertility journey, already having moved through and having to recover from that physical stress, right? There's an immense amount of psychological stress that comes inherently with this. You just mentioned a big one, right? Oh, I have wanted this baby so badly, so I should just feel happy and grateful that that baby is here. And the reality is that mothering is hard. And we have moments of joy and connection and gratitude. And we have so many moments of, quite frankly, regret and uncertainty and discomfort and loneliness and pain and anxiety. And so if we're coming into motherhood after a fertility journey, expecting ourselves to feel nothing but gratitude and joy, we're going to be wildly disappointed because that's not what new motherhood is, right? So I think there can be a way in which moms who have worked hard to become pregnant and have a baby on the outside really set themselves up for a lot of missed expectations. And you and I both know that when expectations are missed, we don't just feel disappointment, but we often feel shame and resentment and judgment and criticism and hopelessness and these deeper, more complicated emotions that are just harder to work through. So I think that's probably the biggest piece of this. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it's essentially like a mismatch of expectations and reality. And that gap often lends itself to more distressed emotions.
It sure does. And I think as mothers, we want to remember that it's okay to not feel good all the time, that we can be so grateful and love our babies so deeply and be so glad that we are mothers and still feel really uncomfortable a lot of the time, right? That those two things can happen simultaneously. And I think what happens, especially in those moms that have worked so hard to become pregnant, is that there can be an element of shame that comes with that, right? I'm supposed to be so grateful. And yes, you can feel grateful and struggle at the same time.
Yeah. And I think that's a really important message because I think the story that this is creating is this both and scenario where it's not just like this or this, pick one. And it's actually, in reality, it's like all of it. I feel this and this and this and this and this, and all of it can exist at the same time. And it's okay.
Yeah, there's room for all of it. We don't have to choose. Am I just happy and grateful and feel good? Or am I unhappy and regretful and unworthy as a mother, right? No. You can feel all of it. It's funny. Our brains want there to be one or the other. Our nervous systems like having room for all of it. So even when you say that, my nervous system settles. Just the idea that it's okay to feel all of it. I'm like, oh, I don't have to work so hard to figure this out and decide which thing to feel, right?
Yeah. And remembering that what you're feeling is just feeling. And
exactly.
It's okay. It's all okay.
It's all okay. There is no problem. I say that often, like, what if there was no problem here? Yeah. What if it wasn't a problem that you're having this moment of regret about going through this whole process because it's not as easy as you thought it would be? What if having that moment of regret is not a problem? What if it's okay? It's just a feeling. It'll pass. It'll move. They all do.
Yes, so good. Thank you so much for joining me today. This conversation was, bar none, one of the best conversations I've had on this podcast. So
I'm so honored of the opportunity. I think when we get to talk about these things and invite folks into these conversations, it's just tools, right? I know it's just sort of, oh, there's a different way of thinking about this that might be useful for me. So I am so honored to be here. And this is just so fun. I'm sorry it's over. We could keep talking.
Well, we know you've got some really hot tips coming up. So for those of you listening in, do not miss out on Kate's tips. And you have a special gift for us. Can you tell us what that is?
I do, yeah. So part of what I have offered the community is what I call my Healthy Mom membership. And one of the things I feel so strongly about in mental health is community, right? I think often we feel all alone in these journeys. And we're not. I often say that mothering is like the eternal equalizer. We all go through the same experience. They may show up differently for each of us and we have different backgrounds, but like we all can relate. And so this membership is an opportunity to join other moms in learning about physical, mental, and social health in motherhood. So each month we present different topics of conversation, different tips, different strategies, different speakers, and the membership gives folks access to all of those. And so we are offering a free month of that membership to come on in and see what's inside. Yeah.
Amazing. And I'm assuming that it's a good space for even those that are moms to be, who's
all of it.
Who's
great question. All of it. It's really a place to talk about those parts of our humanness, our biology, our psychology, our social systems, and how we can work to be healthier in those areas. So really, actually, quite frankly, it's probably useful for anybody, but really we're focusing it on this sort of role of leaning into being a mother and all that when we're trying to take care of these other little beings, whether they're a being in mind or a being in body. So absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being with me today.
You're welcome.
This was a wonderful conversation and I can't wait to hear your tips. So for those of you listening in, thanks for joining in and we will look forward to seeing you again very soon.
Take care. So nice to be here.
Was that an amazing episode or what? Make sure to check our show notes so that you can link up with our guests. And if you're not a part of our secret Fertile AF community, you can join for free via the link in our show notes. Last but not least, have you showed us some love lately? It would mean the world to us if you could share and review our podcast. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time on Egg Meets Sperm. Peace.